Once you know how to add effects in Premiere Pro and how to change the settings and how to remove them again, you're going to want to get into the territory of animating the settings for those effects over time. And you can do this on the timeline, but you can also do it up in the Effect Controls panel. And I want to give you a couple of simple examples of this and introduce you to some of the more advanced keyframe controls so you can have a play with those as well. First of all, in my effects panel, I'm just going to get a simple brightness effect here, brightness and contrast, and I'm going to drop it onto this clip, and here are my controls. And the important thing is I can see these stopwatches, and also I suppose in terms of editing joy and fun, I can see it has this CUDA or OpenCL GPU acceleration enabled. So as long as I have a CUDA-enabled supported graphics card or an OpenCL supported MacBook Pro machine, then I'm going to be able to see this effect in real time at good quality. The brightness and contrast effect does exactly what you would expect. The brightness just makes everything brighter. I'll just reset that. And the contrast increases the contrast. This just stretches the shadows and the highlights in the picture. I'll just reset that. If I wanted to, I could just make an adjustment, move on to the next shot, and that's that. But perhaps one way of demonstrating this would be to show introducing a new clip as a foreground element and why I might want to animate this over time. Let's say I put this smiling shot up here on video 2, so it's going to be in front, and I'm going to slide this over so that it's above my original mid shot, and therefore it's in front of my mid shot. So you can see there as my playhead moves along, I'm going to cut to this shot. Now there's no audio on here, but obviously I'd need to make sure that my audio is all on the right tracks so I can hear it. On that foreground, I'm just going to zoom in a touch using the plus key on my keyboard. On this foreground, I'm going to hold down the Control or Command key. I'm going to click and click to add some keyframes. I know I'm seeing opacity because it's written in the menu here. So what I'm working on this yellow line is opacity. And I'm going to drag this down so that now, as I drag through this, I'm going to gradually see this foreground shot. Excellent. And up in the Effect Controls panel, because I have this clip selected, there they are. Those are my keyframes. And if I just expand my opacity control, I can see the keyframes displayed. And if I expand opacity, I get this lovely advanced control. I'll just resize this a bit so you can see. Now, I think when you first see these controls, and maybe it's just me, but I find it very confusing to look at. There's all these lines appear out of nowhere and all these numbers appear. So to break this down for you, the slider, let me jump to the next keyframe. I've got here previous, add or remove, and next keyframe. I'm going to jump to the final resting point keyframe where it's going to stay at full opacity. Here I've got a slider control which I can use to adjust how much opacity I have. You can see it's updating the percentage there. And you can probably work out what's happening in this part. And if you look for the horizontal lines, you can see these are actually there to divide up parts of the interface. And I can click on them over, not on the left, but on the right here, and resize these. What I'm seeing is exactly the same thing as I've got on the timeline on the clip. The yellow rubber band here on my clip segment is represented on the clip and also in the Effect Controls panel. That's this top part here. Underneath that, I've got this velocity control. Now, for an effect of this kind, velocity isn't particularly significant because, well, I can adapt it anyway, and I'm not going to see movement as such on here. This makes more difference when you're working with animating content across the screen. Now, I'm going to show you these controls in a moment with an animation because it makes a bit more sense. But here you can see that I can move the keyframe in time. Look for the horizontal lines you see here where I've got opacity, I've got the percentage, next, previous keyframe buttons, and I've got the add and remove button. And if I select a keyframe, all I can do is change the position in time up here. I can't change the setting. In this next section down, I can't change the position in time. I can't drag left and right. I can only drag up and down. And I'm changing the value of this keyframe. And then down here in velocity, if I select the keyframe, you see it goes a kind of a golden yellow if it's selected. There's one over here that's gray. Now I've got this adjustment to velocity, which is the speed at which Premiere Pro is going to animate the setting. That means how fast is it going to go from 0 in this case up to 100%. At the moment it's a linear adjustment and you can see a straight line from one setting to the other. But if I grab this mini handle here, you can see I can start to reshape that. I can change this so that Premiere Pro is going to gradually build up speed and then ease off the adjustment over time. And that's where this velocity control comes in. The velocity controls really just update the main keyframe controls. And you'll notice that I can adjust one and it updates the other. And for that reason, I'm personally not crazy about using the velocity control at all. I like to use the line here in the rubber band because it shows me everything I need to know. But there you go. Some people like to use one, some people like to use the other. Now I'm going to go back to my other clip here where I've got my brightness and contrast. Let me move over a little bit. Let's say, just because it's my creative vision, just because I need it to be so, that I want this shot to start out really bright and then I want it to come back to normal brightness as this transition occurs to dissolve into the other shot. I need the brightness to match between the two shots. Well, here's how I would do it. First of all, I would use let's turn on this track here. There we go. I'd use the up and down arrows. You do need to turn on the tracks that you want to jump between clips on. So here I'm using the up and down arrows on my keyboard to jump between edits. I've turned on video 2, so now I know that by this point in time, I need to have normal brightness on my clip. So having chosen the point in time, I'm going to turn on the stopwatch, and that's going to add a keyframe with the correct setting on it. Then I'm going to come back in time towards the beginning, and I'll be pretty lazy here. I'll go just a little bit in so you can see what's happening a little better. And I'm going to click to add a keyframe. In fact, I don't need to click this button because now that keyframing is turned on and I've got one keyframe, any adjustments to the settings are automatically going to add another. So now I'm going to drag this up and I'll make this really obvious. Let's say that's my vision. This is what I need to create. And now I've got my keyframe. And as I drag through here, you can see Premiere Pro is going to work out the difference between the two. And by this point, we're back to 0. And now we're going to start to see that foreground video that I keyframe the opacity for. So that's using the keyframes inside the Effect Controls panel. Now, just quickly, if I switch over to another sequence I've got set up here, this is, if I just get rid of the visibility for video 2, this is an animated background I created using After Effects. After Effects procedurally generate textures, and there's a lot of presets, and there's a wonderful brainstorm feature that allows you to adjust the settings. So if I play this back, you can see I've got this animated pink curtain, which to my mind is absolutely perfect for showing a clip like this in the foreground. Again, I can't justify my creative vision, it just is what it is. I'm going to select this clip, I'm going to go to motion, and I'm going to drop the scale down to, let's take a look at 50%. Okay, maybe I'm going to go for about 40% because I want you to see what's happening. Now I'm going to select the motion heading and I'm going to put the clip up in this corner. And notice I've got my keyframes turned off. And now I'm going to click somewhere near the beginning. I'm going to turn on keyframing for position. Then I'm going to go somewhere near the end. And because keyframing's turned on, and because I have the motion heading selected, I know it's only subtly a lighter gray, but it is a lighter gray. I'm going to drag this down to the bottom left. This line that you're seeing is called a motion path. And it describes the journey this item is taking from one point over here to another point over here. Notice that it links to not the corner of this image, but the center, to the anchor point. That's something that you can specify here in your motion settings. If I just play this back, we're going to get let me click away so you lose the motion path there. I'm going to play this and we're going to see a linear movement. Stop. You see that? It goes from still, move, steady linear movement across the screen, and then stop. Now if I select this clip again, you'll see that I can expand my position, and now I've got my keyframes displayed and I've got my velocity, and I can, if I want to, start to adjust the timing of this movement. So if I select this keyframe, you'll notice I get these little, as they're called, Bezier handles, and I can click to adjust, here we go, the velocity with which this clip moves. And now if I press play, it's a more gradual, you see there's a kind of acceleration. If I make this even more pronounced, we should be able to see. You see, it's very, very smooth acceleration and deceleration as it goes from one keyframe to another. And look at that, the icon has changed for the keyframe as well. If I right-click or control-click on this, you'll notice that I've got two kinds of interpolation. I've got spatial, which is, does it go in a straight line or does it go in a curve? And I've got temporal, which is to do with the timing. Bezier just gives you the handles. Auto Bezier will automatically adjust an even, smooth line. Then you've got continuous Bezier, which if you've got multiple points gives you two handles that flow evenly between them. And then ease in and ease out, which just does one side of the keyframe, and hold just doesn't smooth anything. It gives you a straight line. And linear, of course, gives you a straight line that connects from one keyframe to another directly. Rather than me telling you about these, you're better off clicking on each one and watching what happens, and you'll see very clearly. With the spatial interpolation, I can set this to something like continuous Bezier, and then here you can see now I'm not getting a straight line. It's moving. You see at the beginning there, I'm getting a little bit of a movement. And I can change how pronounced that movement is as the clip moves across the screen. So the trick with keyframing is not to think it through too much, but to click on everything and watch what you're clicking on and watch what you're doing and observe the results. And you'll very quickly find that just about anything you want to do can be done. It's just a question of finding the right button and clicking on it. So that's an introduction to using keyframes in the Effect Controls panel in Adobe Premiere Pro CS6.